So the objective of today is to really start at the beginning of Excel. I'll show you quickly to start how powerful what we can do. I consider myself okay or good in Excel. People would say I'm really good, but when I compare myself to other people I've seen, I feel I only use 15, 20% of Excel. It's power. So Excel is really exponential. The objective today is really going to be to understand the depth of Excel so that after that, your learning slope is going to be much greater because you really get the base really strongly. So everything you do will become really easy after. So we have 4 people on the call. Let me know if please jump in, ask any question anytime, have me repeat, no problem. French is my first language, so if I say something that doesn't sound right, please let me know, and I'll go back. All right, and then we have one more person that just joined. So how do I see the name here? Welcome, welcome. So stop me anytime, ask me a question. We'll go to the basics. I think some of it you'll know. Some of things are basic, but are maybe not known. So to start, I'm just going to start with, I'm going to start with how powerful Excel is the objective is through a few series that we'll do is for you to really get the basic of Excel so that you can really analyze your session and the data in a really efficient way. I'll give you an example. When you go to the Beyond Pulse platform, you can export the information and then you have a game. A big mistake that most people will do is you have tabs at the bottom here. So for example, each tab, they would have different tabs that has each information of each game. Well, my goal is today I'm going to start with the basic of understanding how Excel is built. And the objective is going to show you that we don't want to have multiple tabs. We want to build a database where all your games, all your seasons are all in it. And I'm just going to show you quickly. This is, for example, one game that I took from a U8 team. And this is the data we get from Beyond Pulse. I've added a few information, first half, second half, because you can slice and dice. And then normally, if I had a second game, I would have practices. I would not put in a different tab and do a different analysis. I would put it all in one. Oh, 2 seconds. We have more people joining. Here. Sorry. Okay. Here we go. Admit all. All right, Eduardo is in. Eduardo is in, and we've got also Matt that was on the call I spoke to quickly last week. Matt, this will be the introduction. So a lot of what you'll have here will be similar to last week. Feel free to stay on. I practiced with Matt last week. And if you have questions or things that you practice on your side, feel free to ask. So back here. So quickly, the depth of Excel is once you understand, there's a big word, pivot tables. A lot of people think, wow, okay, what does that do? Once you start placing your data in the proper way and you do pivot tables, you'll be doing work in about 5 minutes that anybody who doesn't know Excel thinks you just spent 5 hours doing. So here's an example. This is the data. I have an OA team. We have a few columns here, the players. You could see the players here twice. Why? Because I have one row for his first half. The second row is for the second half. And then different information that is all exported from the Beyond Pulse platform. So one here, this is a table. Basically when I do here, I could do insert table. And when I insert and I make it a table, I tell Excel, this is all one big area where I'm analyzing the data. So as you add more rows and rows, you don't have much more work to do. You simply have to refresh your table, and Excel understands that you're working with one big table of data through time. So if I create a pivot table, normally I would have to select the entire field. Because I'm anywhere in my table, and I made it a table, I would say pivot table. It's going to tell me select a range, table 1, start this on a new sheet. And then I have a blank sheet. Well, quickly, what we want to get to is pivot table is a way of looking at the data where you don't want to be the one doing the numbers, adding, or anything. Excel does it for you. So one, it limits mistake because now Excel is way better than humans on making formulas and things like that. So Excel does it on its own. And then it also helps you analyze and play with it in a way where you can move one variable and see the impact on it. So here's my pivot table. On my right side, I have a the field or the table that controls it. So you're going to notice here are all the field names of the data we had at the top. So I'm going to take player and I'm going to move it at the bottom here. And all the players that are on the table now appear here. Obviously, you notice that Callum had 2 rows. Some players had 2 or 3 rows each. They just appeared 1 because now we're analyzing it. And then if I say, for example, how many halves was there? Well, I would slide half, and then suddenly I could see Callum, first half, second half. It all does it automatically. If I say, you know what, I want to, well, actually, let me go to another. I want to know for this game, the amount of time that each player spent where their heart rate was over 80%. So I would take this and I would drag that to my values here. This came out as a count, meaning that that's the number of times it was counted. So there was 1 first half, 1 second half. So I would come here, I would say, I want an average. I don't want a count. And now it gave me numbers that look really complicated. I'm going to talk about in the course today. Basically, I changed the format. I said, this is time. I want hours, minutes, and seconds. And now I see quickly that Callum here in the first half had 8 minutes where his heart rate was over 80. And in the second half, he was at 18 minutes. Okay, well, how many minutes did he play? That's pretty relevant to know this. So what I would do is I would come here, I would say segment duration, and I would slide that as my first metric that I want here. And now I have my segment create, here we go. Sorry about that. I know I'm going fast. Right now, I'm only trying to show you how powerful this can be. And I'm going to do a sum this time, not an average. And now I could see, and then I'm going to say, I want the time of the session first. So Callum played 10 minutes, 40 seconds in the first half. So now I know how much time he played. And out of the 10, 8 minutes, his heart rate was over 80. Okay, I really want to know also active participation. So I'm going to take active participation. I'm going to drag it here. And now we have a sum of the active participation. But this now thinks it's minutes. It's actually a percentage. I'm going to come here. I'm going to say percentage. I don't want decimals. And now I have the active participation for the first half and the second half. And then I'm going to change this for an average. I'm going really fast. My goal right now, showing you this, is not to teach you pivot tables, is to show you once you master the base of the data and you place it properly, you can play all this really quickly. And what I'll show in the other courses is who's high, who's low. Well, we're going to come here. We're going to select this range of data. We're going to say, give me some conditional formatting. Basically, you're telling the cells to do the thinking for you. The lowest value, we want them red, and the highest value, we want them green. And you said, good, okay. And now Excel just is showing you which player is really low, which player high. So now I can see quickly that Connor, second half at 94% active participation, wasn't really low. Which player are low? Kenny is the goalkeeper, so he was lower. So that's the power of our pivot tables and once you play. So you can imagine if you have an entire season or practices, you can start comparing, what does my practice versus my game look like? What does first half, second half? If I tag my activities in my practices, now I can compare different rondos and compare them. I spend time at Louisville and UNC, for example, and we'll do the same exercises week after week. Well, you know, when mid-season, when the midterms and the exams come in, how useful could it be to compare the same activity and see if the players are reacting the same way in terms of heart rate or different of information? That's something we can easily do by exporting it and throwing everything back into our database. And then we start playing. To show you what I meant before by, I want to change this analysis and say, I don't want it player and then first half, second half. I actually want all the first half together. So I would come here, I would take the player icon, I would just drag it under half. And now we know first half, here are my players, and then second half. I didn't do anything, I didn't count anything. Excel does it for us. So which player here, for example, it has highest, I think if I click here, sort from largest to smallest. I think I did this wrong here. Undo favorite button. I think I have to come and do it here actually. So I would sort. I'm going to sort active participation, and I'm going to make it descended from top to bottom. So 79%. It didn't sort it. I'm not sure what I did here, but for purpose of time, I'm going to move. But you can then sort them and see your players at the top and at the lower. And that's the objective of this 4 series. Is at the end of it, you can build these reports and look like. I'll give you an example of the way it looks after we did analysis. But I have my game report here. And then I could see here, minutes played, time over 80, active participation, high speed percentage, number of sprints, the workload per half, the distance per minute per half. And here you can see quickly, for example, in the second half, most players were covering a lot less distance, except Owen and Connor, who were covering more. And same thing for heart rate. What is the heart rate compare first half, second half? So this is some of the information we can get. Is there any question before I move on and we go back to the basics of it? Okay, so I'll take the no question as everything is clear. So, all right, so back to the basics. Number one thing, I put a big box here. This Excel I can share with you, and you can practice with this document. So I'll make sure and if you all want to, I think you have to register. So I have your email, and I'll send you after this little Excel so you can practice. Google here. Once you get going, you'll see it'll be your best friend. Excel and what you're trying to accomplish, and you always find video. So once you get the basic, doing the pivot tables and all the other features that are up there will become really easy. Google is the best way to learn. So key concept to start. I'm sorry if some of this is really elementary. I'll try to go faster. Please stop me. Same thing as on the field. If you have questions, please ask them. So Excel is based with A, B, C, D here, and you have all your letters. And numbers for rows. I think Excel has, it used to be over 10,000 rows that you can have in Excel. So you can have a complete season and a lot of data. And I suspect that it's more now as time is moving and Excel is getting better. One thing that's interesting. So if I come on this cell here, I'm on C4. So that's really important. And if I decide to insert a row here, and I do insert, it always inserts to the left. And then you're going to notice now this becomes E, and then whatever was in this box here becomes F. So it's really important to pay attention at the top here. There's a lot of value to understand the basic, that every time we work in a cell, we work off a reference that this is cell C and 4. So we have our rows, we have the columns. If I want to adjust the width of the columns, I can simply come here. If I'm here, I can't drag it. If I drag it, it gives something else. If I want to be able to read this, I can move this and make this bigger here, and have more space. I'm always going to do the undo is one of the most useful tools in Excel. Things that people don't know, if I come on this cell here and I already have text in it and I want Excel to, by default, make it the right fit, I would come on between the two lines and I would double click, and Excel automatically is going to find the right width to fit the text that's already in there. So you double click, it will be the same thing from here. So if I click on the top, I'm saying I want to adjust everything, and I double click on the B, it's going to read all the information in A, B, C, and it's going to make it the right width right away for the entire document. So I'll have it here, and now you see it just reformatted. Why? Because Basic Excel for Coaches has this length, so now that's where it's stopped. We don't necessarily want this, because as you notice, I'm writing in Excel here, but it overlaps the other one. I don't need it to make it this way. But if I was to write something here, then that wouldn't work anymore. And maybe that's why I would want to make this the right size. Or we have other tricks that I'll go into. Any questions for rows and columns? All right, I'll try to go a little faster on the basics. Formula bar. The formula bar is here. Really important to understand that when you write in the cell, you're writing in the formula bar. What you see in the cell is not necessarily what is in the cell. So, so for an example, if I write equal 5 plus 5, in the formula bar, I can see the formula. But if I look at the cell, I see 10. These are two different things. To refer back to what we had before, if I select this cell plus this cell here, if I'm reading here in the formula bar, I'm reading F24 plus F25. And I press equal. Now I have a number in this cell. So I need to know that when I click on it, it's not 21.10, it's F24 plus F25. And if I double click, it's going to highlight which cell are selected. Okay, so the formula bar, I'll go back and talk a bit more. When you have more formulas or very long formulas, you can actually drag this down here. Format cell, we're going to go in depth here in talking about the format of the cell, but there's a lot happening in a cell more than what your eye sees. So it's really important to understand that. If I right click and I do format cell, you're going to see there's a lot of things happening. So the category, the cell can be a number, it could be a currency. And if I go to currency, I can select every currency in the world also. I can decide to put a dollar sign or not, the number of decimal I want, accounting, dates, time, all of it. I can also work in the formatting of the cell to align it different ways. There's a font that I can control. I can control borders, fill, and protection, which I'll talk about it. If you're building a document for your coaches and you want them to add every day some information, but you don't want them to break formulas, you can protect some formulas because you know they don't have a lot of experience. You can say, this is unprotected. You can write in it. or I don't want you to write in here so you can protect it. I use protection against myself to prevent me to make mistakes and write in a cell that was a formula and it wasn't supposed to write in it. Screen format and the size. So we have here, we have our whole screen. We are working, if you come look at the bottom here, we're working at 100% of the size. Depending on what you do, if you're working on a double screen, you can start make this smaller or bigger. There's value there. Here, there's also a few other things. This helps you when you want to start printing and doing formatting. This becomes a really fun way of looking. If you want to fit it because you want to print something and make sure that it looks good in the print, you can use this tab or this tab here. This tab shows you, if I was to print, I would see page 1, page 2, 2, 3, 4. And this is often, I work in this page, and you'll notice when you go by default in this page, they make it really small, and you can just bring it back to the same size as the rest, and you can see it, but you can control the formatting of your page here, and automatically it saves you time. So this is your page and the size. So if you want it to fit in a page, you don't want to change the size of the information in the page or in each cell. You want to actually change your print format when you do this here. Okay, one really useful thing here is a little bit in the screen is if I have information here, for example, I have Miles, Deshaun, and all these names, and I start scrolling down because I have a lot of data. Actually, let's use this one here. I have a lot of data, and when I scroll, well, what's the name of my player here? I want to be able to see it. So you would put your cursor right here under the player and under the, actually, let's select here. And I would go to, oops, this is blocking me, here we go. I would go to view, I would say freeze panes. And what happens is when I scroll left, it locks A and B so I can actually see which data is which player. And because I was on this cell when I selected it, it blocked everything to the left and everything to the right. So now you'll see I can scroll here and it keeps my top row here, or else I wouldn't see it anymore. So that's freeze pane, unfreeze pane. You'll notice if I scroll, I lose the top, or if I scroll left, I lose it. So that's a little bit of the formatting here. Let me just make sure. Put notifications off. Here we go. Okay, so back here. Okay, so tabs at the bottom of Excel, you've got different tabs that we talked about. Very useful to control. I have always one tab called database, and then different pivot tables can be on other tabs. Other information can be on others. Here, 2 levels to what we're doing today. Page layout, I think I've already talked a little bit about it, which there's so much option. You click here, page layout, and then you can control your margins. I often work on narrow margins to fit as much as I can when I print. Do I want to be landscape, portrait? All this other, best way to figure them out is as a player. The players learn when we put games and we let them solve the problem. Similar here, if you click page layout, you'll see them. Just click on one and you'll see there's so many options, and it's very self-explanatory. As we're moving, and I'll talk a little bit of the formatting, 3 important features that I use all the time in Excel that you know, I consider myself, when I work in Excel, I play. So basically I'm, you know, it's a trial and error, and I figure things out. Undo has to be the thing I use the most. So you start doing something, you realize that's not what you expected or you wanted, undo, use it all the time. The second one is the escape button. So if I go into a cell and I'm in this cell here, and I start writing and I'm like, oh no, I already had information. I don't want to lose my date. So what do I do at this point? If I press enter, now I just rewrote in this cell. I could do undo, or I can start writing and simply hit escape button, which then just you leave and you go back to where you were before you started writing in that cell. So I use that all the time when I work. And then the paint button. So if we go back here in the home tab, we can format our cells. The paintbrush, basically, I really like visual. I think people learn with clear visuals. So when you write in a cell, we kind of talked before about this is a format of a number, and it's very different to this. So if I want to make this cell here the same format as here, right now it's just a number. I would click here, I would click paint, and I would go click here. And now it copied everything except the inside of the cell, the information that's in. It copied all of the formatting and it copied it. So escape, and then I'm back here. So the paint format is really useful when you want to make sure that the cells and the looks alike, which we'll go over what is the formatting. Any questions so far? Okay, so we've got a number here. You have a cell. Again, what you see is 10.89 and a ton of digits. Well, obviously, when you do reports, you don't want to have those digits there. You want to decide how many digits. So you go on your cell, you right-click, format cell. There's many ways you can get to them. You can get from the top two. I go to my number tab, and then I say, okay, this is a number, and I want 3 decimals. And then you'll see there's even more. Do I want to see negative numbers and show it differently? And then I say, okay. And now I just made it this way. Currency, I would come here, right click, format cell. This is a currency. I want 2 digits. I want a third one, or I don't want digits, a dollar sign. There's different ways of showing dollar signs. US, they put it on the right side. If you're in Canada, or I know Quebec, the dollar sign is on the right side. It's all here. It's easy to do. So you would select here. In this case, we would say dollar on the right. And then I would say, okay. Now we have it. And now it's formatted. Again, if I added decimals in my formula bar, they're not going to appear here. This is going to just show me what I want. This is a useful one. A lot of people, when we work, this is actually really critical. When we work in a database, we want the data to be entered as a way of a database where Excel is going to understand. If I write Monday, actually Excel is getting better and now they start to recognize it. But if I wrote Monday, October 4, 2020, look here. I have some text in here. And if I start to create pivot tables, Excel won't recognize this as a date. It's going to recognize this as text. But if I write here, for example, my date in a format that I want, which would be 1/25/2020, for example, and then I come here and I say format, this is a date, and I want to get 25 January 2020, we can see the sample, what it looks like. You can actually go to custom and do more and say, I actually want to see the day, the month, and the year. So you can see here, day, month, and then the day as a number, and then the year. There's so much power. If I added 2 Y's here, now I have my full date. If I add an extra D, it's going to not do Saturday as SAT. Right here, it's going to go Saturday full day. What you're sharing with who and why could be beneficial. I know for periodization, knowing the day is really valuable. So that's one of the reasons why I show this. So we could have this, but you know what? We don't need the date. We just need 2. And the month, we can go with just January like this. So I'd rather have it like this. And now I have it like this. So now, Saturday, January 25th, if I look at the cell, it's actually referred as a number. Similar here. Same thing, format cell. I'll show it again. So if you see date, you can select. Again, we can come here depending on the language and how you work in your country. You can change it here. Oh, here's everything we get here in the US. So I want a full date. This is the way I want it. Okay, now I have it this way here. Time is actually pretty tricky in Excel. This is how Excel writes it, 10.0000 a.m. I'll show a little bit later how we can play with. Important to understand, you can type it this way, but you can change it and you can have it look different ways. I want to see the PM or I don't want to see the PM. You can have it different ways. Obviously, if you're doing time, minute played, you don't want AM, PM. So you can play with it. And then we'll go a little bit more in deep after. This is a percentage again. Format cell, select percentage. How many decimals do I want? 1 decimal. Okay, I have it here. One thing that's really valuable, if I want to say 5 plus 5, obviously the way it's going to appear here is if I said this is text. Forget the regular Excel. It's not a number. It's not formula. It's just the text. So it's here. So now you would see it. If you want to write it down, you can. There is options for special characters, zip codes, a zip code +4, phone number, social security number. So if you're writing the information about players and you have all their information, you don't need to enter the hyphen. So as you're gonna notice here, there's no hyphen. The hyphen appears because I say this is a phone number. So custom, this is a phone number. And now the hyphen appears. And if I want it differently, I can, parentheses or anything else. One that I think is also very useful. Again, here we see 10 and we see points. Look at this formula here. The word points doesn't appear here. Why would I do that? Because if I wanted to make the sum of, for example, here is 10 points and this is 15 points, and I came here and I said equal this plus this, well, Excel doesn't recognize what is 15 points. That's not a number. Excel is adding 32, these two cells together, and it doesn't recognize this here. So this cell is purely 10. So how do we do this? So here we would have our 10 here, and then we would go to custom cell format, custom, and then in the formula I would write, I want to have 1 0 space, and then I put, I don't know how that's called in English, quotation. I open my quotation, I write the word points, close the quotation, and you could see the design appears always as a sample. And now it appears as 10 points, but it's not. And now if I want to add this plus this, it's going to work because it's really looking at the numbers, not at the way you present it to the user. Here we go. I'm gonna go a little faster here. Again, it's all about formatting. You go to format cell. We go to the alignment. We can move our text vertical. This is one example. I can make it diagonal. The text is too big and I want it to format. I come here and I say wrap it. What is wrap? Wrap goes and it goes under. I can shrink it, meaning it's all going to stay in one line but really tiny, or I can do merge cells. in this case here. There's also shortcuts here, so you could also click it here, and now it fits it automatically. The shrink, if I click the little shrink text, you can see it's a little too small to read, so that might not be the one you want, but sometimes it's perfect if this, the format is just a little bigger. Indent is this here, so you can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You always want it to start a little lower, so you didn't have to put spaces. Again, if you're trying to control a database and you want to make sure Excel understands what you're doing, you use indent instead of hitting spaces in the cell, which from the eye could look like the same thing, but big difference when you get to manage a database. And then the other one that's really valuable is the merge these 5 cells together. I click here, merge and center. And then I just merge all these cells. It gives me a warning because I might have other text somewhere. I'm gonna go to undo here and have it here. Borders, we can add borders and we can add patterns in it. The last thing I'll show is how to use, in this, if we go here, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna take the entire page, I'm gonna do right click, I'm gonna do format. So now I'm formatting the entire page. Obviously, there's just, every cell is different type of formatting. But if I go to protection, I say unlock the entire page. So every cell in this tab is unlocked. And then I'm gonna come here, I'm gonna say, for this cell only, lock it. And then you lock it, and then what happens is, the concept of locking in Excel is the same as you can put a lock on the door. It doesn't mean your door is locked. So now you just put a lock on this cell, you can still write in it. If you do undo here, I'm gonna have to come here and protect the sheet. And when I do protect the sheet, you actually select only the cells that are locked. And then I never put a password in, but you might want to for different reasons. And now you can see a little lock at the bottom. Come here, and it doesn't let me write. So if you'd have formulas you don't want someone to break, that's what you would do here. Unprotect, and we're back here. Any questions on the formatting? Okay, so now we're going to go a little bit into formulas. Again, I think this will be pretty straightforward. There might be a few things you'll learn. I'm going to talk about the dollar signs. So here, for example, sum, I'm going to do equal this cell plus this cell, this cell here. So B18 plus C, and then I have it here. I could also do a sum by doing equal sum. So I select a formula and I select those two. So if we look at the formula bar, it's a little different. This is equal B18 plus C18. If I look here, it's now B19, 2 dots, comma, a semi-comma. Sorry, my French is taking over here. Why would you do that? If you want to make a sum of 30, 50 rows, you don't want to make the plus, you want to use the sum, which I'll show you right after. So we have this here. Trick, once you have this here, you want to make it for all of these distances. So I'm going to drag it down here. So I take my formula and I drag it down. So you're going to see the 2 cells that are here. Second here is I wrote some random distances. If I say equal this distance divided by the total here, this is 0.14. So that's the 14%. 1,000 represent 14%. So that example, that was the percentage that was at high speed. I would drag it. I would have my percentage for all my players. I can come here, format, and say, please give me a percentage. Let's keep the decimals. Now I have percentage for all my players for this here. So again, get my formula here. something I just found out. How do I transfer this 0.47 into minutes as a number? Because when you do formulas, sometimes it's really hard to work in this format. So what you could do here is basically you take this here and you multiply by 1,440. Why is that? Because it's 24 times 60, if I'm not mistaken. Is that it? It's actually 24 times 24. Times 24. 24 times 60. Oh, I didn't put my equal sign. Here we go. So 24 hours, 60 minutes. So I multiply, and now I can see, now it's a formula, it's a number, which might be a lot easier. If you play with a lot of data, sometimes this is really hard to play with. Now you have it. It's 47 minutes, 0.60. So the 0.60 is a percentage of the 36 seconds of the minute. Why is that useful? You could do it off here, but this would be a really easy way. So now I take my total distance and I divide it by how many minutes the player played. And now I can see that my player was averaging 146 meters per minute in average in the game. So that's useful. So I can take this, I can drag my formula down, I can drag this down, and now I can see which player are really high, which player are low in meters per minute. I want to do a sum of all the distance here. I come here, I can select the sum, 42,000 meters. Is that useful? Maybe I prefer to have an average, so I select here, average. Now I see it as an average. Remember I said about the paint, it doesn't look well, it's not aligned. Really easy, instead of going format, I take my paint, and now it's aligned. I can take this, now this is an average from here to here. Escape, I want to go out. I would drag this, now I have this here, for all of this here. I can make this a little bit more bold. I can add a line here to make it look a little bit better. And now we have this here. Another reason to use the paint, my format is completely different here. I would take this, I would make the paint. Here we go. Consequence of the paint, I just lost my line. So how do we do? I do this, I take this cell, paint here, now my line is back, and I can do it. Any questions here? Okay. What I'll do is I'll finish with one more really useful tool in Excel, and then I'll leave the last 10 minutes for questions. It's the dollar sign. The dollar sign is something we introduce in the formula here. So basically, I would say this cell plus this cell here. I would have this here. I'm gonna take this. Here's another issue with formatting though. I have a gray box. So if I do formatting, what happens to my gray box? It just disappeared. So in this case, I would come here, I would select format. This is a number, use here, take the decimals out. Here we go. So why do we do, what is the dollar sign? So the dollar sign is introduced, we would enter it here. So when I drag my formula down, Excel is intelligent. So I'm here, I drag it down, this follows, okay? What if, for example, I want to convert these kilometers to miles? So I would take 6,900 meters and I would multiply by the mile conversion. Okay, so it's 0.6. And then I'm going to format this so I can see this well. So now I know it's 4,304 miles. Actually, I would have to take the whole, put a little parenthesis here, divide by 1,000 meters, and it's 4 miles. The problem with this is when I drag my formula down, because I want to do it for all my players, when I'm going to drag this down, what just happened? So the formula, Excel, as you drag it down, the cells that it's following also drags down. So another example is if I'm here, now it's using this and this. So that's why you would use the little dollar sign. So I come on my formula, I come at the top, and then I double click and I can clearly see D35. So the D represents the row here in the column. And I would say, well, I'm gonna go, when I go down on here with the row D35, leave it as is. But H32, I want to stick to the number 32. So I would put a dollar sign in front of the 32 and press enter. So what happens is now in my formula, I have D35 as cell is free. So every time I slide down or right, it's gonna follow. But on H32, when I drag down, it's gonna freeze on the number 32. So now you could see what just happened. It sticks to that cell here. So when you create formulas, that's extremely useful. Why would you want this? For example, you've got a conversion, you have, you want to enter a number, you want to make sure that it sticks to that number. That's what you would use. If you are to do it on the other side, and I'm going to drag the formula to the right, but this time I actually want D to stay here. I want this row to stay here. Well, my dollar sign would go in front of the D here. So what I'm saying is when I'm dragging right, stick to the row D for this one here. The H is going to continue moving. You'll see it. The H will continue. So the red column. And now I have the H keeps moving and picks up the new formula I have here, but at least my total stayed here. Does that make sense? Did I explain the number and the value of it properly? All right. So that's what I had for today. For me, again, the objective is just going to go back to the pivot tables, how to organize. The next session, we're going to start organizing the database. But for me, it was really, really important that you have the base to start building a foundation. You know, one of our problem with our education system is you do your classes, you get 60% in math in fourth grade, and then you move on to fifth grade. Well, I'm not sure if I want to build a foundation on 60%. So it's like trying to, you know, play soccer without some basics. So for me, I thought it was really important to understand the depth of the cells, the formulas in Excel, and then from there we can move on to go to very complex. So any question? Anyone? Let's see, we have questions in the chat here. Did I miss a? Oops. Okay. Bruno, Jorge, is there anything that before we leave you think I could answer? Something specific to an Excel sheet that you have or something? You might have to unmute yourself if you have. All right, so if no question, that is it for me today. The next one, and I will send this by email. You'll have the Excel. If it's not useful for you, maybe it is for other coaches. I know I've heard a lot of coaches that are they're like, hey, I get asked to play with Excel. I just don't know where to start. I don't know the basic. So maybe the video could be a useful beginning for if it's not you, for anybody else that you work with. All right, awesome. All right, I like that thumbs up. All right, awesome. So Felix, Bruno, Jorge, thank you. I hope this was useful. I will send you the video recording. You can share. If you also have any other information, anything more that you didn't want to ask here because it was more private and more around the data, no worries, just send me a note and I'll be happy to help with any other specific questions you have. So thanks everyone, and have a great week.